Welcome back to the Resolution Room, where we turn tension into transformation through clarity, connection, and consistency. I'm your host, Dr. Nishay Lowe, and this is a space where we explore what's really underneath the moments that challenge us and how they can lead to something more honest, more human, and more whole. So let's get into it.
Welcome to a very special crossover episode with the Measure Up podcast with
Dr. Nicole Alioto of Alibaba Consulting.
And the Resolution Room with Dr. Nishay Lowe of Lowe Insights Consulting.
And today we are so excited to welcome a team here from the Lake Forest schools. And I'm going to have the team introduce themselves because we have 3 people joining us here live from AASA in Nashville. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves today?
Hi, I guess I'm first. I am Erin Leonard, and I am the principal of Lake Forest Community High School and also an assistant superintendent of Lake Forest Community High School District 115.
Wonderful.
Good morning. I'm Matt Montgomery, superintendent of Lake Forest School District 67 and Lake Forest Community High School District 115. It's a shared superintendency, so all 3 of us are interacting with both districts and our roles.
Right. And I am Dr. Renee Fitzsimmons, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability for both District 67 and 115.
Wonderful. And for those of you listening who aren't familiar, can you give us a little background about the size and kind of geography, a little bit of background about your school and how does it compare maybe with others within your region and around the country?
Well, we are actually a very unique school district. We're one of 4 shared services models in the state. Many school districts are unit districts, which is pre-K-12. We're actually pre-K-8 and then 9-12 in our high school. 2 separate districts, 2 separate boards, so 14 board members, 4 collective bargaining agreements, but a lot of systems and shared governance, 3,100 students between the 2 districts. And then our high school not only has our elementary district that feeds into it, but also we take from 2 other districts or 2 other communities into the high school. So very complex, very exciting, and some really good work at people.
So the high school since it's located on the North Shore of Chicagoland, we definitely have larger high schools that are around us. Ventura High School, Stevenson High School. What's really special about Lake Forest is it's small, 1,300 students as opposed to the 4,000 to 5,000 students you see in high schools. And so we really can get sort of that small town feel. We offer all the things that they offer, but we're able to do it for our students, again, smaller population. So very proud of it.
And it is a quaint, very small town feel community that is almost looking into the past. So you'll see many students riding their bicycles to school. You'll see them walking up to the ice cream shop after school. So it is like a look into past yet modernized. And we're very proud of the personalized experience you can have for students inside the schoolhouse as well as beyond the community.
Wonderful. Great.
So I have a funny story though too. We actually live in the community too. So my first week there, probably the first 2 days, bicycles were something I came from right outside Washington, D.C. And certainly students had them, but they didn't ride them frequently. Very few did. And I was driving through town, and we also did not have trains, railroad tracks in Northern Virginia. Where
Right.
And so I was trying to get used to pausing and stopping and what that looks like and feels like. And I almost hit someone on a bike.
Oh.
Because I'm like, people ride bikes downtown here. What is this? I almost hit someone, and I'm going to tell you who it was. It was Vince Vaughn. I almost hit. Because he was actually riding a bike with his daughter.
That is
graduated from Lake Forest High School. And I'm like, oh my God. So I almost hit someone, and then he turned and he looked. He gave me the dirty side. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Vince Vaughn. And I just moved here.
Yeah, and it was her celebrity crush too.
Are we allowed to say that?
I know, but always
Too late. It's out. It's out.
As a kid,
Are we supposed to be formal? Let's do. Tell it like it is.
I would like to recalibrate the superintendent to talk about.
We're amongst friends here. It's all good. All good. So I know that you're here to share some great success stories about what's happening in the schools. I saw in your topic that you're talking about here, portrait of a learner. And what we're seeing across the country, and I'm based out of New York, and New York is pushing the term portrait of a graduate. I say pushing because we're seeing it all over our news media and all of the publications and policies at portrait of a graduate. But it really stood out to me, portrait of a learner. So can you talk to us a little bit about what does that mean and what does it look like and how does it come to life within your schools?
Oh, I'll start and then see how my partners in crime would answer. But we brought together approximately 150 individuals from across the community 4 years ago when we were creating our Portrait of a Learner. They actually gave us feedback that they preferred learner as opposed to graduate, because as we were representing one portrait for 3 different communities, so it's the other elementary district, Lake Bluff 65, 67, and 115, all came together. So 21 board members, they wanted to use the word specifically learner because of the younger students that were matriculating through the system. We're serving all of them regardless of where they were on the continuum. And the portrait came to life with 6 competencies that are alive and well today. And I can see what Aaron and Renee would add further, but it was intentional that we chose that word. I think it's nomenclature. So much of this work is portraits are ubiquitously important. If you call them portrait of a graduate or portrait of a learner, the work is the work, but it's important for the context in which each one of us are served.
Yeah. And I would add that the portrait work is the crux of all that we're doing. In our presentation today talks about how we did bring people together. So that feedback piece, and what is that cyclical feedback loop of listening to people, listening to the right people, bringing them to the table to have those conversations. And the portrait is so special because it really, it exemplifies our next steps of greatness and how it's going to define us in a different way from our other schools and communities. And I would say that the portrait is going to be our way of handling AI in the future. It's all about those durable skills. It's not just about academic proficiency and growth. It's who you are as a person and what skills do you have that will allow you to be able to lead the robots in the future and maintain
Instead of being replaced by
Right.
Exactly. How are we not going to be replaced?
You want to be John and Sarah Connor. You don't want to be the other.
No fighting. But we want to make sure that our students are exiting with those skills and will make them the humans that will be able to do the look at the future.
It's real life, real skills. That's what we were talking about here at Institute. So I think that really when it comes to things like communication, we should be fostering shared definition, K-12, and really starting to make sure that those skills are built very early on.
Yes.
And that's something that I was really proud of the work and proud of the community study described.
Exactly. And not about checking boxes. And the high school's been leaders in that.
Today's presentation is going to talk about the feedback loop that works, and maybe we can talk through the individual elements of that.
Okay, so our feedback loop algorithm, if you will, is that it really starts with listening and listening deeply and listening before you even have a problem in practice or even before you want to define what greatness looks like. That will help you define the work, whether it's identifying a problem of practice or whether it's just saying, what is our next thing that we're going to do to elevate us to that level of greatness? But the other thing too is I think it's defining really purposeful metrics, but being laser focused with them. I love that you're looking at that.
So excited to hear all these metrics, laser focus. All my favorite things.
Yes. Well, I think we oftentimes create a strategic plan, but there are a lot of words. And for our teachers, anytime you talk about anything new, it's one more thing. So the laser focus metric, we've tried to, at least at the elementary level for sure, we have tried to identify 3 critical metrics that will align directly to the strategic plan and the work of the community. We first deeply listened and engaged. All of our teachers can speak to those in their own buildings because each school has a very laser-focused school improvement plan that directly aligns to the strategic plan and community work, and they can speak to them. And it's clear, and they're purposeful, and we've determined what are we measuring that actually matters. And from that, then Aaron's going to speak today in the presentation about the high school work around that collective leadership as an actual skill set of a leader to empower their own leaders, which then trickles down. So it's all about scaling in for students to have that real impact.
And maybe, Aaron, you can talk about our vision around collective leadership and what that is to us.
Collective leadership, I really think of it a lot as like trust and verify. But it first starts out with part of that listening is getting to know the leaders in your building, in your district, and making sure you're aligning them with their areas of passion. Oftentimes people will take a position and then they're just giving, they'll be in charge of this. And it's something that certainly will get done, but for it to get done well, and if you really want to, if you put it into something that is so passionate about, it's going to get done really well.
Absolutely.
So that's a big part of our collective leadership structure is we did the listening, got to know the individual administrators in 115. We knew what our goals were after listening to the community around portrait of a learner, really around academic excellence, creating more opportunities for students in AP classes, doing credit classes, and then working with individual leaders to make them the champions of those areas because they were passionate about them. And really, the sky's the limit. I mean, they every week, every other week, as a meeting with the individual leaders of the building, they're inventing new tools, they're leading new meetings. They're finding new avenues in order to innovate because they're really passionate champions in the areas that they are actually. But it's part of that coaching assignment as an assistant superintendent, as the principal of the building, is I'm checking in with them about their area of leadership every other week. I mean, what are you doing? Explain to me what you're doing and help me to coach and do that. So it's wonderful. Yeah.
And I think we've shifted from distributed leadership to collective leadership. And the key difference between those two are we're involving not only internal stakeholders, but external stakeholders. So when we're trying to collect information and guidance of where we should be going next, we're relying on going out into the community, whether it be the foundations, the APT, the athletic boosters, the arts boosters, to make sure that we are collecting the Rotary, feedback from the people we're serving that are not in the building, but voices very much need to be represented and increase our product overall because we have more individual data sets or data points to make our data more rich and meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So impactful. This is all amazing. I'm wondering, especially for the real skills initiatives that you're doing, any resistance you've had from the community or parents and how you're overcoming that.
I would say that we haven't had any resistance from parents. They were a part of the work, again, in the listening engagement session.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing we worry about is that if we're not doing something well and making it meaningful, then parents as well as staff members and faculty feel like it's just one more thing and it's a checked box. So I wouldn't say that it's any pushback in that regard, but I think where we're trying to have our next steps focus on is how do we create those authentic and very problem and project-based learning experiences so that when we're going through every lesson with our students or every unit or every engagement opportunity, that it's not about a standard. We don't want our learning objectives to be on the board as here is the standard of you're going to be able to increase your numeracy or your literacy. It's just we're trying to make it about what does this matter for you? Why would you care about this? And how is this going to serve you in the future? So we've stopped using the term outcomes necessarily, and we've talked more about teacher clarity. And so we put that into almost all of the lessons, and we're working deeply on this to make sure that students understand what the teacher is seeking and why this matters. So we always start with the why, and that has helped reframe the lessons to make sure that they're helping our students really understand why this matters in the real world, and that will hopefully serve them in the future.
So one of the things, a big part of our strategic plan is for us to actually create college and career pathways. So those career pathways in Illinois actually has a structure for that for students to receive a credential if they finish some courses. So it's interesting because anytime we send a survey out to the community, they're all about how are we making sure that we're supporting safe, make sure that you have these other career pathways, college pathways, of course, but other career pathways. We know that. We know that Illinois ISB actually has a directive for us to do that. So we do it. We do that work, and we know that that's important, and we have many students who are taking advantage of that. But the challenge is anytime you're in front of the community, anytime that you're talking with stakeholders, it really does default back to the academic excellence piece. So for us, it's just having that shared language of training around we value academic excellence. Of course, we're like Forrest Tyson, 99th percentile, school districts. Of course we do. But also we value enriched experiences for our students, which is what the career pathways we do. So making sure that we have that common language, I think, helps to diffuse the pushback.
And we've been able to demonstrate significant growth in both districts academically, and maintaining that academic excellence and reassuring the community that is at the forefront of our work. It's foundational, is of the utmost importance to start introducing topics that are simultaneously as important. But I think if we were to falter on the academics, it would be a much more challenging conversation. I would also add that right now there's an acute awareness that the real skills for real life, or durable skills, are non-negotiables, and they must be married with the academic excellence for us to truly prepare students for the future.
Now, it sounds like there's a lot happening, because there is. So how long has it been since you started this journey? I know you started with some listening sessions, and it's a lot of work to get all of that coordinated. So how long really has this been going on for those listening, thinking, boy, we feel like we're so behind in this? So can you give us a time frame of when this actually did start?
5 years.
So it's been 5 years.
So if I break it in, first year we dedicated to listening and learning and developing the portrait.
Mm-hmm.
The second year we created 3 different strategic plans, one for each district. Lake Bluff 65 created their own independent strategic plan that's separate from us, but Lake Bluff students move or matriculate into the high school.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all intertwined, but there's 3 separate strat plans that were formed in year 2. Year 3, we dedicated to creating metric documents that are aligned to the strategic plan and the portrait itself. And we also have board goals that materialized around year 3 that are aligned to the metrics, the strat plan, and the portrait. This is the first place I have ever been where all of those things are singing together,
Mm-hmm.
and we are seeing incredible gains because of it. But it took about 3 years to get everything built out. We were doing work over those 3 years. Like, for example, a major referendum was passed to improve the high school from a physical plant mentality. So we're modernizing inside to match the beautiful outside of the exterior. That happened during those 3 years. We overhauled curriculum. So when we were building the strat plan, we're putting things in there that were focused for us. And now it is an interesting inflection point, because we have to figure out in years 4 and 5 of the strategic plan, we're going back to the community early March to say, with the onset of May I, and how much the world has changed since we got together initially, what is rising to the top for you? Is the portrait still what we're after? Are those words the right words? Is the strat plan in year 4 and 5 what is most important, and where should we put our energy? So that collective leadership, we wanted a moment in time to progress check with them, because these should be living, breathing documents.
Right. Absolutely.
So thinking back, this has been a 5-year journey so far, and you've made amazing progress. If you can kind of look back at your old district selves and give advice to other districts who feel like they're struggling and they were at a similar starting point, what would you say to them?
Oh, I would love to start with that one, if that's okay, because I have been in the district for a while, just with different team members, different leadership. And I can say, in working alongside Dr. Montgomery and Dr. Leonard, we have had just amazing focus and clarity. And I think what I would say is that we were, and I don't know who we're speaking to right now, right out into the void, but I hope that a lot of different demographics can see themselves in this story. We were a school district that was high performing, and we were in the top percentiles at the state. We had an amazing reputation, but we really looked at the data, really looked at student outcomes, state summative assessments. I mean, we were fine. Right. But it was better than many, but not at that level that we really knew we could be at. And we weren't growing students to that level that we should have been. And I almost sometimes say the students were growing in spite of us. And so I love the fact that we have now really realigned and refocused. And some of the things that I would give other school districts some advice, if anyone was listening, or my old self, I would say, make sure that you are understanding clarity, right? Streamline, as we said before, laser focus. Pick 1 to 3 things to really focus on and do well. Get everyone speaking that language, rowing in the right direction. make sure, my second tip is make sure that you can have your team speak data, understand the data, and have it humanized. Because data will tell a story. And it's not the be all end all because students are not data points, but have it tell a story so you can start supporting those children universally, making universal shifts as well as interventions and individualized student support. And I would say that third point is accountability. So don't throw it out into the universe and then never revisit it. Make sure that you are revisiting it. And as your leaders, whether you're a district leader, a principal, make sure that you're following up and just checking on it. Because when we have a phrase in our districts that say, if you just wait it out long enough, it will go away. How many people think about that? So I think that's the accountability. Inspect what you expect. And I guess I'll add a fourth, relationships, right? Build that culture. You can't build a house on a weak foundation. So how are you engaging, listening, seeing people, getting to know them, knowing their pets' names, their children's colleges they're selecting. So just how are you building that trust and relationships and connection?
Wow. Anyone want to follow up? Make sure you're committed to that. As a district office, make sure you're committed to that as principals and schools. Well, if you're not committed to the district's priorities, committed to your school's priorities, which align to the district's, and then make sure that you're eliminating first of the waste of teachers. I think it's going to be important. 5 years ago, just to be honest, I probably would have wanted to start with Portrait of a Learner because that's how we got to know the community better. And those 150 stakeholders sitting there, going through what we valued as a community, making sure that we stood those things up. But I think just beyond that, it is the board priorities. Next, then engaging the boards. I think even prior to the strategic plan for us would have been good. Just because after the board would do the same listening session, so then we can make sure that we understood its priorities, what was the board hearing in the community, and then again to build out our strategic plan. I would have probably honestly advised reverse those two things for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting that you bring it up. So I agree with everything that both of them said. The board priority conversation was an interesting one because we involved the board. All 14 were a part of, or some semblance of the 14 were involved in the portrait, and they were involved in the working groups of the strategic plan. They came back and said that they really want their own priorities. Mm-hmm. So some of them felt as if it was after the fact and they didn't have enough latitude. I don't know if it didn't end up that way, but some of them were feeling that way. But to put the problem of practice I have, because I don't think there's any right or wrong answer here. If you would have pushed the board's priorities too early in the process, the community could feel like their voice is not as authentic.
Right.
So I think regardless of which way you choose to involve your stakeholders, my mantra is involve as many as possible and as frequently as possible. Yeah. The rest will shake out.
Early enough,
as long as you're having candid dialogue and you're listening more than speaking.
All right, so we went back. So let's go forward now. So we're going to come back together in 5 years and kind of reflect and say,
our reunion special.
Yes, it's our reunion special. So what are we going to see for the district in 5 years? Where would you like to be
I think
at?
that's an unknown that gives us great excitement. Mm-hmm. So I told you that on March 2nd, we're bringing together the original portrait group. And we're inviting them to say, tell us where you want the focus to be. I'm also especially interested in how AI is going to shape the landscape, how capstones are going to work on capstones in grade, specifically 8 and 11 with the pathways and internships. I'm wondering really how the school day is going to evolve in response to how the world is changing to make it as personalized as possible. So we're really digging into collective leadership and change leadership for transformation because public school's been in place since the Committee of 10. So we're talking over 100 years. Some people right now I hear are worried that this is the beginning of the end. I rather think that we should use these stimuli to evolve and just make it better. But how we're serving students, we have more tools than we did previously. And we need to acknowledge that and be inventive to make sure that they are getting the experiences they need to be successful. I will also tell you that I feel like we're moving this is another argument where I argue with myself. We've worked really hard to move the graduate work to the undergrad to high school to middle school. And now you're looking at third graders. Well, got to get ready for high school. I also want to keep in the forefront that these are whole children who are growing, and we want them to love learning because we want them to do that well beyond their experience with us.
And I would just add this.
Did you take a nap on that one?
I did, yes. Waking up my alarm just went off.
You guys see my life, don't you?
I am going to preach this until the end of time, but I've been in this field for a very long time. And I always, as a teacher, back when I was a science teacher, and I was rather small stature compared to my 8th graders in the science class. And I remember thinking, how in the world am I going to be able to control this class? And how am I going to be able to actually teach them something that I don't know what level they're coming in. I remember even with my 8th graders wanting to make that learning fun and meaningful, and everything from having in their health sciences unit, we did a mock ER, and everything from day one, they pretended they were doctors. They led toward the final days of surgery on a fetal pig, or our mock ER on the last day of school when they were graduating, and they didn't have to do anything, but they were still focused and present. I will always preach that making learning fun, play-based, even in 8th grade. I think we can do it in high school in some way where there is an actual purpose to the learning. We'll keep our students engaged. And through that, we used to do that, but we weren't so focused on some of the standards. Now we've really worked on the standards piece and that fidelity of the curriculum. So how can we blend that pendulum swinging a little bit so that we can have that authentic learning, how we can have curriculum and standards taught with fidelity and still do well on standardized tests, but just make kids love learning, want to show up if they didn't have to. And also through that process, learn how to be what our portrait says, all those competencies. So that is my hope for the future. And I hope that we're able to really get there with our next steps.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Can I ask you all where to follow updates for the district and all of your work?
You can follow the website. We have opportunities where you can engage and actually even subscribe to newsletters if you want to learn more. But we have dedicated pages to our portrait work, our strategic plan, the metrics. The journey to get there is all mapped out. And you can see real-time updates of what our areas of focus are through that channel. You can also follow the districts on Instagram. There is an Instagram feed for both 67 and 115, or any of the three of us.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn for all three of us.
Okay, great.
Facebook for the...
We'll definitely put those links in the show notes, because if you're listening to this, you might not have a pen and paper to write things down or text it to yourself, but we'll put those links in the show notes to make it easy to follow all of this great work. Thank you so much for taking time. I know you're very busy and really appreciate you taking a moment to speak with us. We're really excited to see all the great work that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As always, thank you for joining me in the resolution room. If this conversation moved you, challenged you, or gave you something to carry forward, consider supporting the show. You can explore our wearable wisdom collection in our Mind Shop, where each piece is designed to spark reflection and dialogue. You can also join our growing community for behind-the-scenes conversations, resources, and support of your own journey through tension and transformation. And if you just want to say thank you in a simple way, you can always buy me a coffee. Every gesture helps keep this space going. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, keep building in the quiet, because that's what will carry you forward.